And then just the bloodbath begins. And you're just watching the fight as it goes on. And you're just like, what is happening?
Why? How?
Why?
Let me put you on game.
And let's talk about Invincible, the new
Woo!
Amazon Prime series from comic book writer and creator Robert Kirkman, also the creator of The Walking Dead. Released about a month ago, and it's basically set the world on fire. It's blown up. It's crazy popular. For anyone who's not familiar with Invincible, I don't know, like, you must be living under a rock if you're not, but if you aren't, Invincible is essentially a show about a teenage superhero whose father is Omni-Man, but he's essentially the equivalent to Superman in their universe. And it's about Mark, who is the main character, and his struggles with dealing with the onset of his powers and also balancing his powers in his regular life. But that's the basic synopsis, but there is so much more going on in the show. So let's just do a spoiler-free review. What are your impressions of the series overall, just quickly?
I mean, overall, I feel like it's a very interesting story. I love the way they set up Mark and his arc over the course of the season. I think the show as a whole kind of highlights the absurdity of superheroes and destruction that they can cause at a scale hitherto undreamt of, as Dr. Strange so eloquently put it. And just I thank God that it's a cartoon, because if it was live action, I don't think that they could pull off some of the things that they were able to pull off in the show. And the show also kind of, it highlights a theme that we've seen over, I would say, maybe about the last 5 or 6 years of superhero stories. Before, when it came to superhero movies, you saw a lot of the glitz and glamour and how awesome it is to be a superhero to some degree. But now you're seeing more conflict in what it means to be a superhero, what the cost is. It's because, and you kind of see it in like Batman versus Superman, where you see how the fight of Superman and General Zod looked from the street level, whether if you're a Batman, or in Civil War, how the exploits of the Avengers kind of cause destruction around the world, even if they are trying to save the day, and the collateral damage. And that's especially highlighted in a show like The Boys. They kind of deal with the same thing, except it's live action. And you just see, what happens if Superman is crazy, you know what I mean? Or sociopath or psychopath, whatever you want to call him. And so I like how the show deals with that, but from a cartoon perspective, it's different, and it's fascinating. And I love how it's pacing. Somebody said it's paced similar to like a Dragon Ball Z. You have a little bit of action here and there and a lot of exposition. And I actually enjoyed, like, the 45-minute runtime approximately of the show. It made it more of an interesting way to develop your characters and become a lot more attached to them. So I loved it. I really like it.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite shows of recent memory, to be honest. Like, I found myself, like, every week I was like, I had to tune in. I had to figure out like what was going to happen. And I think you covered it well. It's a very realistic portrayal of what it would be like for a kid to be a superhero, or to be a superhero in general. Like, you covered the superhero aspect, but also just Mark being a high school senior, like, and that just got his powers, like how it's not all, he's not competent at it. Like on any level, really. So you kind of see his struggle with just trying to just be decent, be good at it, while not causing destruction around him. And it shows that you don't always save the person in need. Like, you don't always beat the bad guy. You don't always get it right, and he so often gets it wrong. And I think that that's an intriguing watch, more so than him just being all powerful or having it all figured out. So I definitely really enjoyed the series, and I love it. I'm looking, they just got renewed for seasons 2 and 3, and I can't wait, bro.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get to the nitty gritty. We're gonna get to some spoilers. If you haven't
Yes.
seen Invincible, please, if you love animation, superheroes, Marvel movies, or just TV in general, just go watch the show. I got my wife watching it. She's not into this kind of stuff at all, but like she's enjoying it. So it's like, just go watch the show. I promise it will not let you down. But we're gonna get into some spoilers. So just go ahead and end the episode now. Skip towards the end for our goodbyes, whatever you got to do. But
Yeah.
that first episode, man, my goodness, they set us up with the okie doke, because like the way that the episode opens, it feels so much just like a typical teenage superhero drama. Like there's nothing unique about it in a way. And when I
Yeah.
watched the trailer for the show, like I wasn't interested in watching it at all, because I was just like, this just looks like, I wasn't familiar with the comics. I was like, this just looks like a typical teenage superhero drama. Like I'm good. But
Yeah.
everyone just kept saying, watch it, watch it, watch it. And then the end of the first episode happened, and my jaw dropped, and I was like, I was shocked, I was appalled, I was uncomfortable, but I was like, I'm in. So what so what were your reactions and impressions of the first episode?
I mean, similar. I'm like, okay, is this Young Justice? Is this Justice League? Cool. They're setting up the stage. These superhero, this conflict. This Omni-Man dude is kind of cool. He saves the day. All right, whatever. And it was very methodical. It reminded me a lot of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
The first episode of Game of Thrones, where you're just watching. It's like, okay, a lot of exposition, a lot of backstory. Why do I care about they're being called to their tower. You have the end credits, and you're like, oh, I guess the episode's over. A couple frames, and then you look at the time, it's like 13 minutes left, 10 minutes left. Like, what's going on? And so you press play and you keep watching, and you see all the superheroes gather. It's like you got the black girls, like, oh, a black superhero, and she could fly. Let's go. You got the black version of Batman. You got all the other superheroes, and they gather, and they're like, what's going on? Omni-Man comes through, almost destroys, I think, Immortal. I think Red Flash saves him temporarily. And then just the bloodbath begins. And you're just watching the fight as it goes on, and you're just like, what is happening?
Why? How?
From the Red Flash just getting his, and I rewatched it recently, and I realized that what was happening was Omni-Man was actually squeezing his head quite quickly. The superheroes were trying to run, but this is all done in slow motion. And that's how fast Red Flash was punching him. He was punching him to save his life in the matter of seconds, because he knew his head was getting squished. It just happened in slow motion, because by the time the rest of the heroes got to him, it was over. They made a quick dash and his head was already squished in, and Omni-Man had a red chest.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Like, and just the way he and then he took Darkwing and just like slung him around like he was a rag doll, and just like squashed his head. Like, just the level of brutality. Like, I just wasn't ready, because it literally, I mean, I think they might have cursed like once or twice throughout the episode, but it was very mild language. But to go from that, like Smallville basically, to the Red Wedding, it's insanity. Like, it just like, no, like they played it so well. Like, no one was like, he's putting his fist through people's faces. He's like having this girl do an about face, but with just her neck. Like, it's like, it's just, I just couldn't comprehend like how or why. Like you're trying to process all of this brutality, and you're also at the same time trying to process like what is going on, because they've built Omni-Man up to be this like loving and caring father figure, and like this almost perfect nuclear family with a couple cracks in it, but nothing major. And
Yeah.
it just like I didn't even did you know what was going on? Because I legit thought dude was possessed. Like I had no clue what was happening.
I didn't know what was going on, and I was just dumbfounded. And I was just like, okay, because especially with like something like Amazon and the boys, I've grown to not be so comfortable and feel like I know what's going on. I'm just like, I'm along for the ride. Okay, this is what's happening now, whatever. I thought at some point he was going to explain. And, when he was about to decapitate Immortal, I thought maybe he might have said something, but he didn't. And it was what it was at that point. And it just the when he like destroyed Darkwing, it was funny because I was like, why didn't Superman do this in Batman versus Superman? It makes you realize how absurd any comic book is when it comes to these superheroes, and how they're kind of PC and, oh, we want to bring them to justice. We want to lock them up and make sure that they're held accountable for their actions in some type of supermax, vibranium walled prison. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
these guys they can put a hole in your body with just with a jab.
Minimal effort. Yeah. It's mind blowing, dude. Like I couldn't process it. But like
Yeah.
it does slow down a little bit going into the rest of the season until the finale, which we'll discuss. But
Yeah.
did you have any favorite episodes, characters, or moments that stood out to you before the finale?
Yeah. I felt like the moments that I enjoyed the most were just the characters in general, and how they were able to develop each character and each superhero. Even though the Justice League was killed off so quickly, you still kind of got to have a feel for their powers and their uniqueness. And they did a very good job with the story building of developing each superhero. Whether it was, even though you've seen these superheroes in other types of, Marvel comics or DC comics, you've seen superheroes with the same powers. Each power actually felt unique. Each character felt unique to themselves. Whether you're Immortal and his backstory with his flashback, which was kind of weird, like, was he John Wilkes Booth or was he Abraham Lincoln? I was confused about that. But the fact that he's just super powerful and immortal, or an Omni-Man who is basically Superman, but not because he was born on Krypton, but because he's just so battle hardened and is just so durable and just a very experienced warrior. No laser beams, but just as powerful and can fly. You have Battle Beast, who's this, this galactic warrior who's just searching for the best fight that he can get, and how he destroyed Invincible. Adam Eve, who's kind of like the Green Lantern, but not really, just born with her powers. And she's just unique in her character arc and how she just actually wants to use her powers to actually save people, build wells and fountains, stop forest fires. Rex Splice, who's kind of like Gambit, talks a lot of crap, but he does it with coins. Or you have Monster Girl, who's basically the Hulk, but a female version, and gets younger every time she It's like just very unique characters in their own respect. And just, but my favorites are definitely Robot, Adam Eve, and Cecil in terms of my characters. Like, I love that whole kind of story where you're not sure what Robot is doing or planning. That was a really nice mystery going through the story that kept me engaged.
Yeah. I really loved Robot too. That was one of my picks for favorite character. It was very intriguing, his storyline, because you always kind of got a hint that what he was doing wasn't necessarily on the up and up, and what's going on. And I like the payoff for it was really cool, especially when you talked about the Mauler twins, the clones, and how their storyline led into his. I thought like everything was so intricately woven together. Like there was nothing wasted in the season. I really enjoyed lots of aspects of the season. Adam Eve is really cool as well. I'm interested to see where she goes because I think she's way more powerful than she's shown thus far. Just the fact that she can like alter matter like at will is just is crazy to think about. But I think my favorite aspect of the season overall was probably it's a cliche, but Mark. The fact that like he's named Invincible, but he's literally anything but. Like Mark was getting served up this whole season by almost everybody he went up against. When Battle Beast like caved my man's chest in, like crazy. Like that man is invincible as all hell. Like he is. He's very much not invincible. But it's really clever because like you have how invincible is a misnomer on that end. Yeah. But it's also a perfect name because of how often he gets like run through, but he keeps coming back. So he's invincible in that sense. So I really enjoyed Mark's arc in terms of how we've never really seen a superhero just consistently get their ass beat just over and over and over again. But the quality that you admire about him is the fact that he keeps coming back, and the fact that, you know, he also has to balance his other life. And I enjoyed his interactions with Amber and how he's just is realistic that that's how a teenager would handle being a superhero, how he would just completely mess up at every opportunity because he doesn't know how to balance his time. So that was a really intriguing storyline.
Yeah, and I loved how, did you notice how with every episode when they introduced or they said Invincible, they cut to the
the title card, yeah, and then it got slowly and more progressively bloody, like as the season went on. Yeah, that was great. But yeah, let's talk the season finale, bro. Like, oh my god, like I have never seen anything like that in any medium, whether you're talking about animation, you're talking about live action, CGI, whatever. I have never seen anything like the season finale. So like we'll get to the scenes, but like what are your overall impressions of the season finale?
So you can't talk about the season finale without talking about the penultimate episode, episode 7. Episode 7 was insane. Like the Mauler twins and Robot conspiring to bring Immortal back to life. Robot revealing his intentions and becoming, human again. Then the kaiju and just everything that Cecil threw at Omni-Man just to slow him down.
And failing at it, like,
and failing miserably. There's no kryptonite in this universe. There's just what you got. What does the U.S. government have up its sleeve? And Omni-Man, a lot of creativity. Yeah. But that and just the revelation of who Omni-Man was to both Debbie and to Mark, and just the way that it broke their hearts was kind of like, it was real. It was very emotional. It was kind of what you expected, Mark being a child and being kind of idealistic and just saying, oh, my dad is a bad guy. I got to take down the bad guy, instantly. It was interesting to see that. But the destruction that they caused was just like, bro, like what? That scene, like Mark getting thrown through a building and trying to save the woman. And then he saved, like, mind you, you have this whole building that's falling down. So there's residents above and below who are probably dying, but he's just trying to save this one woman and her daughter. And he just comes up with a limb at the end of it.
That's why I love it, though. And it's so heartbreaking at the same time, because in every other show, he saves them. In every other show, he saves them.
Yeah.
And in every other show, that arm is well and fine and attached to a, maybe injured, but gonna make it human being. But in Invincible, it's just an arm. Like that's the nature of the show. But what I love the most about the season finale, we can get into it now, is how they took a dilemma and they basically stretched it out and converted it into what we saw as a scene. So the dilemma is Omni-Man revealing to Mark, or Invincible, his son, that he's here to conquer Earth essentially, and that he wants Mark to join him. And Mark is like, no, I've grown up as an Earthling. Like, this is my home. I could never destroy it. I mean, first, just the heartbreaking part about him not even like thinking that his dad could do it, like him saying, let go of my dad, like him thinking his father, like we thought, was possessed, and that's not the case. Like it was heartbreaking in that sense. But then the whole episode is basically Omni-Man explaining and showing Invincible in multiple different ways why he thinks human life is meaningless, and in the most brutal way possible. Man, like when he said, I love your mom, but she's like a pet to me. Like, could you imagine hearing that from your father, like your mother? Like, I couldn't even begin to process. Like, that man is evil. Omni-Man has to be one of the best villains I've ever seen put to screen. Just the level of callousness, brutality, and just like, he's diabolical, man.
Yeah. And he's just one of many generals from Viltrumite. Like that is his race. That's who he is. They are Darwinian personified. You know what I mean? Like a whole race of survival of the fittest. Like, join or we will crush you. That's who they are. That's their essence. And he's just one example of it. And what makes him, a complex character, though, is that he has kind of that same mindset of almost like a Darth Vader, where there is some conflict because they do love, and he's shown the ability to love. And what was fascinating about the episode and how it ended, I saw on Reddit, somebody posted a really brilliant explanation, and they said that their race needs you to be weakened in order to make you dependent upon them. Why exactly he waited, almost 20 years until Mark got his powers to actually fulfill his, plan is, I think, hopefully they explain it in other seasons. But essentially, he wanted to weaken the Earth. He wanted to make the Earthlings reliant upon Omni-Man and make it easier for them to join the Empire so that they didn't resist. And what he realized was, at the end of the episode, he didn't want to kill Mark because he has grown to love Mark. Yeah. And now he's relied on Mark for love. And he is now weak by that estimation.
By the Viltrumite standards, yeah.
Yeah, the Viltrumite said it wrong. Yeah, but the Viltrumite standard is like, oh crap, now I'm weak. Now I'm vulnerable. I can no longer take over this planet. With his wife, he saw her as a pet. And so that's not real weakness. But if you see your son as someone to love, even though he could have sex and create, another Mark somewhere else in the universe, it's not going to be the same. And so I found that to be really fascinating, and it adds to his complexity. And it really is going to be interesting to see how the story builds. And if one Omni-Man can do that to the Earth, I don't care how many, android cyborgs the US government can create, or what other alien planets can do. Like, it's over.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Maybe Battle Beast can do something interesting. I'm surprised that Battle Beast hasn't come across, Viltrumites at all. but I would love to see that battle, and I can't wait.
Yeah,
I know
I'm
that's
sure
coming.
it's coming, but like there's so much to dissect and so much that happened. It's like just the fact that he was just doing all of this. Like I agree with everything you said, but like what really got me is just the fact that he was just doing all of this to just make a point.
Mm.
Like he caused so much brutality. Like it's almost like an argument you have with your, your parents, like as a teenager, and you're trying to get them to see your way and they're trying to get you to see their way, but there's thousands of lives in the balance. Like, and that's what was what was like the, just even the scene where he saves the pilot and the pilot like lands, with his parachute, and he's like, "Oh, thank you for saving me." And Omni-Man just comes up and like crushes his head, and just to say like this is nothing to me. Or when he's just like he's beating Mark to a pulp, and he's just like you said, he's literally saying like 17 years is nothing to me. I can just make another one of you. And just to watch Mark spit his teeth out and say like, he's like, "What would you have?" And he's just like, "I would have you." And it's just like, "I would have you, Dad." And that's just so heart-wrenching to me. But
Yeah.
the main thing I wanted to talk about with you, man, is the train scene. Like, oh my God. Like I have never, like I just said that I've never seen anything like that, but that's the real part where I have never seen anything like that. He just holds his head and just forces him to split a train in half in order just to show him that every single person on this train, like their lives don't matter to me and they shouldn't matter to you. So I'm going to show you basically their insides from you know 0 feet away, just to show you that they are nothing to me. Like, and that I like, bruh, no
There
words.
was, there were no words. I was just agape and just like, uh, it- what? He's doing what? Like, there's no more like, and you've been to New York, so you've ridden on the subway system. It is a tight box, and there is a sense of vulnerability that you have when you're down there at a station, and just to
Yeah,
see that destroyed, that sacred kind of place of travel, in a sense, to be destroyed by superheroes, was just like, this should not be able to happen. But they took something that was so common and made it was so visceral, because it's like, oh, you're just so helpless. It's one thing to be thrown through a building. We've seen that a bunch of times in superhero flicks, but to go through a train station where there's going to be a lot of people during rush hour, and for them to destroy, oh my God, it was just uncomfortable. I was really uncomfortable by a lot of what
yeah,
was happening. Um, and I guess that's the mark of good storytelling, because it made me uncomfortable, but I wanted to see it through, and I was
yeah,
interested to see where it was going to go. And that's really what the hallmark of the show has been. From the
yeah.
time of that first episode, you're just like, what is going to happen next? I need to tune in next week. I need to tune in next season. I almost want to start reading the comic books, but I don't want to spoil it for myself. Like, I'm,
Yeah,
I'm a little
same.
conflicted.
Yeah. That was my dilemma too. Just I want to know more. I want to know like everything that happens in this universe, but I want to enjoy the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it was just such a horrifying scene. Like if they would have did that in live action, I might have threw up. like like it so much of the stuff that happens in the show, like you said before we started, it's only like bearable because it's animated. Like
Yeah.
if it was real live action or hyper realistic CGI, like I don't know if I would be able to take it.
Yeah. People will be traumatized. No cap.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But I'm sure, yeah, I'm looking forward to us, a year from now talking about season 2 and talking about it in our own personal lives, because the show is great, man. But
Yeah.
definitely, if you haven't peeped it, check it out. it's not too much of an investment of your time, but it is well worth like every second of it.